Hello, my name is Yelenы Tryapitzina. I am head of the Department of English, Philology and Pedagogy. I work at the Institute of Philology and Cross-Cultural Communication at Northern Arctic Federal University. Intercultural communication has always been among my scientific interests, and today I would like to talk about this subject area. So, what makes intercultural communication an arena for heated debates today? What does the term intercultural communication mean? Is it possible to learn to communicate across cultural borders? These are the questions I'm going to address today. We live in a world where nobody is isolated from others. People have been thrown into contact more than ever before. Just a few decades ago, Russian people would prefer spending their holidays at home or traveling across the country. It was very hard to imagine any contact with a foreigner. Rare cases of traveling abroad were under principal control from the government. The whole world seemed to be divided into us and them. Now, let us compare it with the situation that we are having today. We travel globally, we have a lot of foreign friends. It means that the world has changed. I hope that cooperation has replaced confrontation, military and ideological, especially between neighboring countries. A good example of regional cooperation is the Barents-Euro-Arctic region, where Archangelsk region is a part of it. The concept of that Euro-Arctic region was introduced to meet the demands for closer cooperation between countries in the north, including Russia, Sweden, Finland, and Norway. Today, we don't have strong distinctions between here and there. The use of digital technology has created a new spectrum of opportunities to go beyond cultural borders. Students now have the capacity to connect with their friends via Facebook or using Skype. Teachers can bring together cross-cultural audience through webinars and video conferences. All these changes have brought new challenges for us. If we want today to integrate successfully into the globalizing world with voluntary or non-voluntary mobility, we all need to adapt to new circumstances and a new global, and that means multicultural culture. That is why skills of effective intercultural communication are so often seen as a prerequisite for social harmony, professional development, personal success. The credit for intercultural communication as a term is often given to Edward Toyne Hall, an American anthropologist who for the first time used it in his best-selling book, The Silent Language, that was published in 1959. Prior to publishing the book, Edward Hall worked for the Foreign Service Institute, USA. Together with other colleagues, Hall developed a methodology of training people in intercultural matters to help them be effective in intercultural encounters. When we talk about intercultural communication, it is important to understand that we use a metaphor. These are not cultures that communicate. Cultures communicate through people. That is why the focus in intercultural communication is on interaction between people belonging to different cultures. When we interact with others in our own culture, we do not pay so much attention to difference. Much in our behavior is highly predictable. Thus, it comes naturally and easy. The situation changes when our partner belongs to a different culture. We often feel uncertain about our partner's behavior and reactions. Thus, the communication between us acquires a new status. We unconsciously need support and additional knowledge about the partner. Scientists who created intercultural communication as a theory were well aware of all these difficulties, and they wanted us to understand them and to know how to cope with them. They wanted to explain how we can manage better. They started with the analysis of the spheres which are activated in human interaction and found several fields for detailed exploration. One of these fields or spheres has always been the object of studies in cultural anthropology, the study of the human as an individual, the product of society, and the maker of culture. Actual people are central to cultural anthropology, as well as their necessity to live in a system of symbols, beliefs, structures, and patterns of behavior in a world culture. Specialists in intercultural communication want us to see what is mostly invisible, still what guides our behavior and interaction with others. It is something that is hidden in everything we see, hear, smell, and touch. It is something that is constituent of social systems and institutions. It is something that is expressed in beliefs, norms, and attitudes. Some people say that these are cultural values. There has been several attempts to describe cultural differences according to cultural values. One of them was undertaken by Gerd Hofstede, who describes cultures in terms of his 6D model. The 6D, or 6 dimensions, are power distance, individualism or collectivism, gender matters, uncertainty avoidance, pragmatics, and indulgence. For instance, if we want to present the cultural specifics of Norway, it could result in such characteristics that will coincide with the dimensions marked by Hofstede. First of all, the notion of power, which is highly decentralized in Norway. And that's why many other cultures would find that bureaucratic structures are not so common there. Control is disliked. Communication between people is more consensus-oriented. Another trait is that Norway is an individualistic society, where the notion of self means a lot. People make clear lines between work and private life, and job mobility is very high. Norway is the second most feminine society after Sweden. Free time and flexibility are favored there. Taking care of the environment is important, whereas trying to be better than the others is neither socially nor materially rewarded. Status is not often shown. There is focus on planning, but plans can be changed at short notice, and improvisations are made. Though emotions are not shown much, people feel very relaxed at meetings, making presentations, interacting with each other. Often people exhibit great respect to traditions. Desires and impulses are controlled, but not totally. These are the characteristics of Norway if we try to apply dimensions that were suggested by Gerd Hofstede. Another important factor in intercultural communication is human language. We often think that the ability to speak a foreign language fluently is essential in intercultural communication. For a long time, fluency in language was associated with correct grammar, a wide range of vocabulary, flawless pronunciation, and the use of correct intonation patterns. Now, we know that language is not just a structure. It is really a system of communication of meanings, and that's why it represents cultural backgrounds. When Edward Hall developed his theory of intercultural communication, he was exposed to the concept of linguistic relativity. The hypothesis claiming that the structure of a particular language influences the speaker's perception and cognition. This hypothesis owes to Edward Sapir, or perhaps even more to his student, Benjamin Lee Wolfe. It says that a language grammatical categories provide speakers with configurations of meaning. It also claims that language influences what ideas are socially expressible, because communication depends on the language and how it organizes meanings. However great is the role of language for the human information exchange, the message can be delivered not only through language use. Edward Hall managed to present a systematic study of other than verbal or non-verbal aspect of intercultural communication. He emphasized the out-of-conscious level of the largest part of this type of information transfer and exchange. There are different forms and ways of non-verbal communication. They are usually explained in such terms as paralinguistics, kinesics, haptics, proxemics, chronemics. Let me give you some examples here. It is no wonder for the most of us who haven't been perhaps abroad yet that we tend our facial expressions for granted. And indeed, many cultures around the world have similar ways of expressing strong emotions, such as happiness, anger, sadness. But the same expression might have different meanings, or sometimes one and the same expression might have more than one meaning. For example, people can smile in some cultures in order to show that they are embarrassed. In addition, the extent to which facial expressions are used varies across cultures. And if we compare, for example, the Japanese culture and the Latin American culture, we'll see that Japanese tend to display fewer facial expressions compared with people of Latin America. The term proxemics was coined by Edward Hall to address the study of our perception of space. Proxemics studies place and space from the cultural vantage point. According to Hall, North American culture is characterized by the use of 4 distinct zones: intimate, personal, social, and public. Chronemics is the study of time. It explains the ways people from different cultures perceive and value time, structure of it, and react to time dimensions. According to specialists, cultures can demonstrate 2 distinct attitudes towards time. Scientists call them monochronic and polychronic. The so-called monochronic cultures like to do one thing at a time. They value orderliness and do not value interruptions. On the contrary, polychronic cultures like to do several things at a time. They find switching from one activity to another both productive and stimulating. Interaction between people with different attitude to time can be problematic. Just imagine that a polychronic person is talking to a monochronic person. And what can a monochronic person feel if his or her polychronic partner is usually or often interrupted by different people coming and going or telephone calls? Very often, national cultures combine different attitudes towards time. But cultures are, like in the case with Japan, Japanese people are known for their adherence to schedules, which is a monochronic trait. But they are also characterized by relation-building patterns. They took a long time, lengthy discussions of issues, which is considered to be polychronic. Finally, I would like to stress that according to Edward Hall, as well as many other experts in this field, people can acquire intercultural competence through learning. Several models of intercultural competence have been developed in recent decades, yet the result of them is invariably seen as an adequate behavior of an individual in cross-cultural settings. Cross-cultural communication or intercultural communication is not always an easy matter, and you have to be aware of the existing hurdles and barriers on your way to better understanding beyond cultural borders. One of the most obvious dangers I would like to warn you against is their attempt to analyze cultural behavior in terms of a generalized national character, ascribing stereotypical characteristics to national groups of people. It might all start as a kind of a naive, humorous, innocent joke like that. Paradise is where cooks are French, mechanics are German, policemen are British, lovers are Italian, and it is all organized by the Swiss. And vice versa, hell is where cooks are British, policemen are German, lovers are the Swiss, mechanics are French, and it is all organized by Italians. But the case becomes really worse when a stereotype is combined with prejudice and generalization. For example, when we start to treat all Americans as superficial people, Russian people would be characterized as drunkards. Another barrier which is not easy to overcome is a quick, intolerant judgment. Sometimes tolerance is viewed as a personal trait of a people's character. But in intercultural communication, it is understood mainly as acceptance of the right of other people to think and behave differently. So, as you see, intercultural communication is not always an enjoyable journey. It is challenging and demanding. Sometimes it can become even frustrating, but the potential benefits of trying to reach across cultural borders are well worth the effort. And I wish you good luck in your intercultural experience. Thank you.